Good morning students. Today we are going to discuss the structure of the flower. Our 10th class chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. So reproduction in plants, it is of two types. One is asexual reproduction, that is called as vegetative mode of reproduction, and other one is sexual reproduction. So the vegetative parts of the plant, when they take part in the reproduction, then it is called as vegetative propagation. ठीक है. So vegetative part कौन से होते हैं plants के? The root, the stem and the leaf. They are called as the somatic part of the plant, as they are not consist of any kind of the gametes. So they are called as vegetative part of the plants. For example, underground stem such as potato. The potato is having certain structure, they are called as eye part or the depressions. From those depressions there arises bud. That bud give rise to new organism. Then it is called as vegetative propagation by the stem. That is underground stem, which is potato. There is another method, that is vegetative propagation by the root. The example is the sweet potato. The sweet potato is irregular, it is a fleshy structure, it is a tuber, it is also a tuber. It is called as root tuber, and it is storing the food starch, and potato is also storing the food as starch. Potato is example of the stem tuber, and sweet potato is a root tuber. So in sweet potato also there is a vegetative propagation, and it also develops buds. From those buds new plant develops. Another method is vegetative propagation by leaf. There is a leaf which is called as a bryophyllum, and that leaf margin, it bears certain notches. At those notches the buds arises. Sometimes small plantlet develop at the leaf margin, they separate out and they develops the new plant. So vegetative propagation is that method in which the new plants develops by the vegetative part of the plant, such as the root, such as the stem or the leaf. That is called as vegetative propagation method. Today we are going to discuss the sexual mode of the reproduction in the plant. That the sexual reproduction, it occurs by the flower. So now we are going to discuss the structure of the flower. The flower is that structure that take part in the reproduction. So a flower consists of 4 whorls. In flower there are total 4 circles or 4 whorls are present. The whorls are classified into 2 groups. One is the essential whorl, other is the accessory whorls. So in the flower there are 2 whorls, 2 circles. One is the accessory whorl, other is the essential. So we'll write accessory. One is the accessory and other one is the essential. So whenever we observe a flower, suppose when we see a red rose or when we see a sunflower, the brightly colored part that we first observe, they are nothing but they are called as the corolla or the petals. Petals are those parts that attract the insect for the purpose of the pollination. To attract the insect, they are brightly colored. So here we have labeled that the colored part of the flower is the petals, or they are called as the corolla. Okay, they are large, they are brightly colored. उन प्लांट्स के अंदर, वो प्लांट्स जिनके अंदर क्रॉस पॉलिनेशन होता है या क्रॉस फर्टिलाइजेशन होता है, उनके अंदर फ्लावर्स का साइज क्या होता है? लार्ज होता है, एंड दे आर ब्राइटली कलर्ड, क्योंकि इंसेक्ट्स को अट्रैक्ट करना पड़ता है. कुछ प्लांट्स होते हैं जिनके अंदर सेल्फ पॉलिनेशन या सेल्फ फर्टिलाइजेशन होता है. देयर फ्लावर्स आर वेरी स्मॉल. ठीक है, उनके अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी खुशबू नहीं होती है. देयर इज नो नीड ऑफ पर्टिकुलर ओडोर. ठीक है, सो जो फ्लावर जिनके अंदर सेल्फ पॉलिनेशन या सेल्फ फर्टिलाइजेशन होता है, they are the small in the size, and they are the dull, and they are not brightly colored, and they are not much attractive. Okay, so the flowers in which self fertilization or self pollination occur, they are the small in the size. Then there is no need to attract the insect in those kind of the flowers. Now the petals role is to attract the insect. Okay, now after petals, जो अपन ने petals देखा वो क्या है? They are the brightly colored part. लेकिन petals से भी पहले there is the outermost whorl of the flower that is called as sepals or the calyx. हम जब कोई flower को देखते हैं, when we observe a flower, तो flower के अंदर all of us have seen the bud जो होता है, the flower until it blooms, it is covered by some leafy structure. They are called as sepals or calyx. तो sepals और calyx क्या करते हैं? They protect the flower in the bud condition. So those structures are called as sepals or calyx. You all have seen red rose, bud of the red rose. So like this, there is a bud. Inside this bud, the flower is there. So calyx जो होता है it covers the flower in the bud condition, ठीक है, and it is the outermost wall. Corolla or petal is the next wall, it is next to the calyx, ठीक है. So accessory walls क्या होते हैं, they are do not taking part in the reproduction, calyx and corolla, so they are called as the accessory whorls, additional whorls, and they are not fertile whorl, they are the sterile whorl since they are not taking part in the reproduction. Then we talk about the essential whorl. Essential whorl कौन से होते हैं फ्लावर के अंदर, when आप सबने रोज देखा होगा, when we with the help of thumb at the center when we crush, when we press, we find that pollen grains powder, yellow powder stick on our thumb. That powder is the pollen grain, ठीक है, the powder is the pollen grain and it is produced by the male part of the flower that is called as stamen. Flower के अंदर जो male part होता है that is called as stamen. This stamen further consists of the two parts, the outer the upper structure of the stamen they are called as anther, and the lower thread-like structure is called as the filament. The stalk of the stamen is called as filament. Stalk of the stamen that is called as filament. It is thread-like structure, and on that side thread-like structure we find the anthers. Anthers किस पे होते हैं, thread-like structure पर attach होते हैं, and inside these anthers the pollen grains forms, and it is the male part of the flower. So flower का जो male part होता है बच्चों that is the stamen. इसके अंदर दो part होते हैं, anther plus filament. Filament anther की डंडी को बोलते हैं, it is a stalk, and this anther is having the pollen grains in it, ठीक है, this is the male part. Is that clear? Female part जो होता है बच्चों it is called as pistil और carpel. The flower का female part है that is called pistil और carpel. इसको gynoecium बोलते हैं, and male part को क्या बोलते हैं, it is called as the androecium. Male part is called as androecium, female part is also called as gynoecium. So female part further consists of the three sub parts. डायग्राम के अंदर देखते हैं सबसे ऊपर ये पूरा स्ट्रक्चर जो है, this upper disc like structure is called as stigma. Then there is a middle tube that is called as the style, and the lower swollen portion of the pistil is called as the ovary, right? The female part is called as the pistil or carpel. The female part of the flower is called as pistil or carpel. It consists of three sub parts. The upper disc like structure, it is called as the stigma, and there is a sticky surface of the stigma, so that when the pollen grain there on the stigma the pollen grain sticks, right? So pollen grain lands on the stigma, it is that surface where the pollen grain sticks or the lands, okay? Then these pollen grains forms a tube like structure, they germinate and forms a long tube like structure that is called as pollen tube. That pollen tube consists of the male gametes, it carries two male gametes in the flowering plants. Then the another long structure after stigma that is called as the style. Style is that structure that connects the stigma with the swollen part that is called as the ovary, right? This ovary is called as the it is the female part, and this ovary converts into the fruit after the fertilization, okay? This ovary consists of a rounded structure that is called as ovule. Inside the ovule there is a bag like structure which is called as embryo sac. That embryo sac consists of the egg cell and the polar nucleus. So in the angiosperms and in the flowering plants there is a double fertilization. Now the question arises, what is the double fertilization? यानी कि जो pollen grain होता है when it germinates it carries two male gamete. So one of the male gamete fuses, fertilizes with the egg, and it forms the zygote or the embryo that is called as syngamy or the fertilization, ठीक है? The another male gamete, that is the second male gamete, it fertilizes the two polar nucleus which are present in the central cell. Central cell के अंदर क्या होता है, दो पोलर न्यूक्लियस, और सेंट्रल सेल किसके अंदर होता है, एम्ब्रियो बैग के अंदर. सो डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन का मतलब क्या हुआ कि एक बार वन मेल गैमेट, देयर इज अ टू मेल गैमेट्स, ठीक है, वन ऑफ द मेल गैमेट fertilizes the egg, then it is called as syngamy, and the second male gamete it fuses with the two polar nuclei, then a structure is formed that provide the nutrition, ठीक है, its ploidy level is 3n, triploid, that is called as endosperm. इसको क्या बोलते हैं, एंडोस्पर्म, जो डेवलपिंग एम्ब्रियो को न्यूट्रिशन प्रोवाइड करता है, ठीक है. एंड एक मेल गैमेट एग के साथ में फर्टिलाइज हुआ तो जाइगोट बना, एम्ब्रियो बना, दैट इज अनदर फर्टिलाइजेशन. सो इट इज कॉल्ड एज डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन. अब फ्लावर के अंदर क्या होता है, फ्लावर का जो पूरा बॉडी होता है बच्चों, ये फ्लावर का बॉडी किसके ऊपर सेट है, इट इज अरेंज्ड ऑन अ कप लाइक स्ट्रक्चर इज देयर. एक कप लाइक बॉडी होता है जो पूरे फ्लावर की बॉडी को होल्ड कर रहा है, पूरे फ्लावर को होल्ड कर रहा है, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज थैलेमस और द रिसेप्टिकल. दिस पार्ट इज द थैलेमस और द रिसेप्टिकल. और वो स्टिक फ्लावर की जो डंडी होती है जिससे अपन फ्लावर को होल्ड करते हैं, स्टॉक ऑफ द फ्लावर, दैट इज कॉल्ड एज पेडिसल. जैसे लीफ का स्टॉक पीटियोल होता है जिससे अपन लीफ को होल्ड करते हैं, वैसे फ्लावर का जो स्टॉक होता है दैट इज कॉल्ड एज पेडिसल. इसको क्या बोलते हैं, पेडिसल. सो आई होप इट इज क्लियर द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द फ्लावर. फर्टिलाइजेशन होने के बाद जो फ्लावर है इट कन्वर्ट्स इनटू द फ्रूट एंड द दैट फर्टिलाइजेशन के बाद फ्लावर किसमें कन्वर्ट होता है, फ्रूट में, यानी फ्लावर का ओवरी कन्वर्ट होता है फ्रूट में. इज दैट क्लियर. सेपल्स और पेटल्स हट जाते हैं, विदर अवे, फॉल ऑफ. ठीक है. कभी कभी क्या होता है, कैलिक्स परसिस्टेंट रहते हैं लंबे समय तक आफ्टर फर्टिलाइजेशन, कुछ प्लांट्स के केसेस में रहते हैं. ठीक है. तो ओवरी आफ्टर फर्टिलाइजेशन किसमें कन्वर्ट होता है, फ्रूट में, एंड द ओव्यूल कन्वर्ट इनटू द सीड. द सेपल्स पेटल्स विदर अवे. तो फ्लावर वो पार्ट है जो सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में प्लांट्स में इट टेक्स पार्ट. ठीक है. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द फ्लावर. आई होप you all have got it, the structure of the flower.